Home is more than a place. It's the people, stories, and ideas that shape us. Welcome to Coming Home, a podcast by Gordon College, where we explore faith, culture, and belonging with thought leaders, guest speakers, and members of our community. I'm Dr. Nathaniel Perez, and I serve as the Associate Director of Intercultural and Urban Engagement at Gordon College. Join me as we dive into meaningful conversations that challenge, inspire, and connect us, because coming home is more than a destination, it's a journey. How do faith and athletics intersect? I sat down with our Gordon College community to talk about that very question and other topics.
I'm Colby Gallipo. I'm a junior at Gordon, and I'm a double major in business and entrepreneurship.
My name is Caleb Stewart. I'm a junior. I play baseball here at Gordon College, and I'm a kinesiology major.
I'm Kevin Whalen. I'm a junior here at Gordon College, played baseball, and I'm a history major.
All right, well, I just wanted to say welcome to all of you. Thanks for being here on the Coming Home podcast. The first question that I have for you guys today is, what does coming home mean to each one of you or so? The idea of essentially being on campus or so and essentially coming back. So this is all of your junior years here at Gordon or so. So what does coming home mean for you now in your third year in school? But I also want to know, what does coming home mean for you once the semester is over and then you guys go back home or so? What is it about home that just makes you feel relaxed, and what do you like to do when you get back there? So
I think coming home, when I think of home, there's a few different things that comes to mind. And when I was talking with Kevin earlier, like the biblical example of home is obviously is heaven, because we're not created for this world, we're created for heaven. And I'm kind of thinking about what that means and how we can apply that to our lives here at Gordon or at our actual house with our families. But I think the first thing I think of when I think of home is like shared values, or like this unity of everybody together. And I think like at home, I have, my family, we all believe most of the same things, right? Very similar things with slight differences. And I think coming to Gordon, it's nice to come to a school where most people have shared values, and we can all kind of unite like a brotherhood, or like siblings under Christ. So I think it's really nice to have that backing, that foundation that we can all fall back on, and get people that we can get close to, draw close to in communities. Just having that same foundation. That when things get rough, these guys can point me to, I can point them to, and even outside of us, the rest of the team, the rest of the athletic community, and the rest of the student population. It just gives you an ability to be there for one another.
I think for me, it's so I don't live at Gordon, but I live at home. So for me, it's definitely, you see the two extremes in the sense that I have my family, but then I also have the family of believers here, and Paul mentions a ton. He mentions brothers and sisters, speaking as the fellow believers. And so I think that's a really big part in it. And I think Caleb talked about it, in the sense that when we are in community, there is that's just such a benefit that we have, in the ability to, Proverbs says iron sharpens iron, but at the same sense, we can build each other up, as believers, and be able to help each other through the struggles, but also be able to help each other call each other to a higher level, and that level is ultimately the example of Christ. But then in the sense that our home also isn't here, and so that's talked about, Romans 12 and John 17 talks about we are in this world but not of it. And Christ even says he's praying for the disciples, and that speaks even larger to us, in the sense that he says that we are not of this world in the same way that he is not of this world. And so I think the idea of coming home, yes, we are on this earth, and we may have homes on this earth, but in the same sense, it is not our eternal home, in the way that heaven is. And because of that, we have the lives here to be able to steward it. Paul says that we are the handiwork of God, created so that we can do good works in the name of the Father, to be able to glorify him. And so I think that the idea of coming home is we steward our lives here, but then when we are called home, ultimately to heaven, that's when we're in communion directly with God. And
I feel like for me, when I think of home, I think of where I'm rooted, where I find rest. And I think for Gordon, I mean, that's obviously the friendships and the family I've kind of built here. I mean, thankfully, baseball is a built-in family, and I'm really close with all those guys. And obviously, I've like my apartment mates, people I've met in class, and I feel like they do help me find rest because I'm very much a people person. I'm very relational, so I feel like home for me is kind of where I'm surrounded with people that I love and that I pour into and they pour into me. But I also think it's kind of for like where I find rest. I mean, just my daily time in scripture. I feel like that helps me stay rooted, and like that feels like home in a sense because it's kind of bringing me back to zero and kind of realizing where I find my value. And then I also feel like I'm from Vermont. I'm an outdoorsy kind of guy, so I think being in nature, I mean, it's such a blessing to be able to walk around and just see the beauty that He's given us all around us. So I feel like home for me is also spending that quiet time kind of out in nature, just seeing how marvelous it is and the blessing it is to give us the animals, the trees around us, and just, I mean, the foliage of Vermont is like doesn't compare to anything else. So I feel like for me, kind of being out in the wilderness helps me feel at home, feel rooted, feel connected to both God and my family because that's something that we really valued growing up. So
Okay. When you think about that, so I know two of you from Massachusetts, one of you're from Vermont, or so. How different is being at Gordon from being well? And you're at Lynn, yes. So how different is it being at Gordon from where you've grown up at, or so?
I think, I mean, the campus life is obviously very different than the home life because at home, it's very laid back. Like this summer specifically, like I'd go to work, come back, and then kind of just be done for the night. Get to hang out with my family, see friends, kind of just have a relaxing night. But like on campus, it's like it's go, 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 and like it's different. But I think it's a good different because it pushes me out of my comfort zone. It pushes me to do things that I wouldn't if I wasn't surrounded by other guys. But yeah, I'd say the biggest difference in my mind is this is a lot more fast paced.
I mean, for me, I kind of live in the middle of nowhere. I mean, dirt road to my house, work on a farm in the summertime. So it's definitely very different. But I think I have an appreciation for both equally. And I think it's nice because I like getting my hands dirty. I like kind of doing that, like the blue collar style work in the summertime. And I think that's a lot of fun for me. And it's been a way that I can connect to my family since my grandfather was a farmer growing up. But coming here, I mean, obviously it's a little more fast paced, a lot of schoolwork, kind of a little more in the city, closer to Boston, which I think is awesome because there's so many opportunities in Boston, but it's definitely a different feel because I'm kind of going from like 400 people in my entire town back home to that many people in my dorm hall. So it's definitely a big change at times, but
yeah, for me, like location wise, I mean, I'm 20 minutes away. But at the same time, it's like so different in the sense that like, you know, in Lynn, it's pretty much like roads and buildings. Whereas here, you know, obviously you have the foliage all around, you have nature, but also like the people is different as well. Because I think naturally, like I don't find a lot of believers in Lynn. Whereas, you know, you come here and it's like pretty much everybody you talk to is a believer. And so it's nice, but you also are able to do the both of the extremes. You're able to not only evangelize, but you're able to be in community.
Now, I know that, you know, just thinking about this as we were talking earlier, so all three of you went to public high schools or so. So what was it like being a Christian athlete in a public school or so? Like, how did you live out your faith? How was that just connecting with others? And then I know you actually became a Christian within your first year of college or so. So I wanted to talk to you guys about that or so.
Yeah, so for me, high school, I think that experience I had in public school all the way from kindergarten to the end of high school shaped my desire to go to a Christian college. I didn't have too many things I was looking for in a school. I wanted to, first and foremost, I wanted to be a Christian school. I applied to 3 schools. All of them were Christian schools. I wanted to play baseball. I wanted them to have a kinesiology major with a concentration in physical therapy. And those were the 3 biggest things. And I found all that at Gordon, which I'm grateful for, but not having that at high school, I think gave me a lot of perspective, and it taught me how to stand for what I believe in the face, like in the world. because obviously public school teaches it's a very secular teaching. And there's a lot of things that I have to stand on and say, hey, I don't believe this, and defend to other people, like, because there it's like it's very normal to be of the world, and it's not normal to have a faith and to be different. But I think it was also a good opportunity to impact the people around me. Like in high school, I had so many conversations with people that I wouldn't have been able to have if everybody there was a Christian. So it gives you the opportunity to, one, stand on what you believe, but two, be a light and be the salt to the people who don't have the same experiences you do, and introduce, like, show them the love of Christ, show them the gospel, and show them the hope that brings. Yeah, definitely, it provides a unique opportunity for sure, and I think it gives me a lot of perspective in life, and I think it prepared me well.
I would say, to go off of that, I think I went through a similar thing, but one thing that I think it's a blessing that we have here that I also had in high school is kind of that saying of, like, you might be the only Bible someone reads. And so I think I really had to take into account, like, what am I representing on a day-to-day basis, and how are my actions reflecting what Christ is calling me to do to disciple others. And I feel like trying to be really intentional while also standing firm on what I believe on was something that I really had to focus on. And obviously, going to a very secular high school, it was kind of hard to be outspoken. So I kind of had to be more, like, I had to show faith through my actions, just because it wasn't taken well when it was outspoken, which it was a blessing to have some conversations, but the majority of it was through kind of how I presented myself. But I think it was really nice because it gave me an opportunity to, one, learn how to stay rooted, especially amongst persecution when you are the minority in a situation of, like, the non-secular or the secular non-Christian world. But I also think one thing that I really appreciated is, I mean, people talk about, like, the Gordon bubble, and it's a really good place to nurture and grow your faith here because so many Christians are alike, and you can kind of have those conversations. But I really like the perspective I got in high school of, like, these are just people, and it's like they might not be Christians yet, but they can be someday. And I think understanding that they do have value as well, even as non-Christians, and that it's our goal to get to know them and to bring them to Christ. I think that's something that really helped me because it allowed me to see through the differences and to see them as Christ sees them and how he died for all of us equally. And so I think that was a really good perspective that I appreciate from public school is, yes, it may have been harder to stand on my faith because it was against what everyone else saw, but I also learned that, like, everyone deserves to be loved equally, and that through that love and that compassion that you show them, reflecting Christ onto them, like, that is what's really going to help them grow in their faith, because if no one's showing them that, then they're never going to see Christ. And so I think that was a really cool perspective that I got in high school.
And I think, sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but going off of that real quick, like, I think another thing it taught me was how to share the gospel. And because I think a lot of the time, like, people view it as just, like, you have to speak and, like, use your words to convey what the gospel says. But something I learned was that, like, if you just live differently, like, people will wonder, and then people will ask. Like, there were people on my high school baseball team, for example, who knew I was a Christian, and then when they started wondering about it, like, not necessarily why I was acting different, but, like, they started wondering about the faith, they knew that I was someone who they could come and talk to because they saw the way that I lived. You know what I mean? And, like, obviously talking about it is important because that's a lot of the time, you know, you're not going to have the amount of time with somebody you need to show them that you live different. But I think that, like, actually living your life, like Colby said, like, living your life as a Bible that people can read is so important and sparks a lot of conversations in and of itself.
Well, and I think going off of that, like when you bear fruits because you're pouring into the word, like, people see that peace, they see that you're slow to anger. And I think that's something where, and my professor Greg Smith said this, where it's like, I don't have to go up to them and tell them, because when they have an issue, they're going to come to me because they notice something's different about me, which is Christ pouring out of us. And I think that that's something that really hit me, I guess. And I think, like, a lot of the times people make evangelism too much of a head issue rather than heart issue. And I think so often it's like, well, if I just tell them these facts, they're going to come to Christ. And what I think high school really taught me, especially in an athletic environment, is that these are people who go through real things, and they just want someone who can show them love and give them that relationship that they're seeking. And I think when you realize that, like, most times it's not that deep. It's not some like theological debate that's going to bring someone to Christ. It's more of like oh, I didn't realize you went through that. Like I went through that as well. This is how Christ brought me through that, and I kind of prospered through that situation. And I feel like that's something that was a really eye-opening experience, because it can be fun to have that intellectual like bang 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 I won, but I think really that when you go after their heart and realize that that's what Christ is seeking, everything else will follow. And I think if you don't really fill that Jesus-sized hole in their heart, they're just going to keep trying to pour stuff in, and it's never going to fit.
Right.
So
true. That's real. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't really have like experience in terms of like being a Christian athlete in high school, because I wasn't a follower of Christ. I mean, I went to church at least for a little while in high school, and then kind of stopped. But I was never a believer, and consequently, I wasn't like rooted in Christ. So a lot of the things that I did, I was at least for baseball, like I was fueled off of like anger, pretty much. And so I think that was definitely something that I realized when I did come to Christ.
So tell me about that. So this happens in your freshman year?
Yeah.
Was that here?
Yeah. So
when did that happen?
It was March of my freshman year. So I like really didn't like it, to be honest, and I think that was on me, because I just didn't I didn't talk to anybody, because honestly, part of it was like I saw a lot of people that were happy here, and I was like, how can they be happy? And that kind of like made me a little mad, because I wasn't the one who was happy. And so February of my freshman year, so this would have been like 2024, Caleb and another kid invited me to church, and so I started going, and I had like always grown up going to church, but I stopped when it hit COVID. And so when I went, it was like the first time where I actually like paid attention, and because of that, I actually understood what was being said. And so I continued going for a little while, and then it hit a Good Friday service. And I had obviously heard the story of the gospel, but I'd never just like actually cared enough to pay attention to it. And so the pastor at the church said, he didn't talk at all. He didn't preach. He just read from the book of Mark. He read the arrest and the crucifixion of Christ. And so that was the first time where I actually heard it, paid attention to it. And it was like I was hit with the Holy Spirit in that moment. And I started bawling my eyes out, because I realized like this is actually true. And so, yeah, that was basically how that happened.
So that was the day you accepted Christ?
Yeah, that night. Yeah.
All right. What has been like the difference for you since that point?
Yeah. So I think, like I mentioned, a lot of the baseball stuff was rooted in like anger. So I try to like get myself revved up, and try and perform off of that. But now it's like I take the approach of like, in a sense, like Ecclesiastes talks about like, everything is meaningless in a sense. And so I take that to the level of results, and obviously I'm a competitor. I want to win, and I want to do well. But when failure comes, because I mean that's the part that I love about baseball, because it's reflective of our lives and reflective of our relationship with Christ. Is when there's failure, which in our lives is sin. There needs to be a grace that's given to be able to understand that like the failure is okay and you don't want it to happen. In the same way that like obviously we hate sin. Like sin is not something we want to do. But we have been shown grace by Christ. And so if you are putting your identity in the failure and in the results of baseball, then you are never going to end up amounting to anything.
Right.
And I'm not saying that there's, a joy that can't be found in it, because, Ecclesiastes 2 says that it's good for us to have enjoyment, because why else would we have it? God didn't give it to us. But I think the idea of identity and being rooted in it is the kind of the deal breaker, because I don't think the results are obviously just part of the game. But there's a deeper result of our lives, which is the fact that obviously we're sinful by nature, but at the same time we're not defined by that sin in the same way that we're not defined by the failure. And so we need to understand that grace comes with that. But we are also trying to get rid of the failure, get rid of the sin in our lives.
I know, like, so I grew up in New York. I know it's not popular up here, but I grew up in New York, and I grew up in the Bronx. That's where I was born and raised at. So team around us was the Yankees, or so. So, like I said, not popular out here. But, I grew up and I'd watch players like Derek Jeter and Bernie Williams and Mariano Rivera. And I remember seeing Mariano Rivera do a whole lot of interviews. And I remember when he retired, one of the other things besides being a great pitcher that he was known for was that he was also a Christian. And one of the things that I remember Mariano Rivera saying was that when they asked him about, this time of retiring and separating himself away from the game, and, there's so much of being an athlete and that being the identity or so. And I remember the statement that he came out with was that he said he saw baseball is what I do, but he said it's not who I am, or so. So how do you guys find identity beyond the athlete part, or so, or how do you live in it? How do you separate those two lives, or so?
I can go with that one. So, I've had some ups and downs in my baseball career. In high school, freshman year was COVID year, so we didn't have a season. Sophomore year, I was super pumped for. Started playing, started the spring, had some shoulder pain at the end of it, and then that summer I ended up tearing my labrum, so I missed junior year. And that around the time is when I would say I became a Christian, and when I gave my life to Christ to realize what it actually meant. Because growing up, like, I had put so much time and effort and value and identity in baseball, and having that all taken away kind of left me like stranded. And I was like, okay, like what? Like someday this is gonna happen again. You know what I mean? Like someday baseball is gonna be gone, and it's gonna be gone forever. Mm-hmm. Like what am I actually living for? That's real. That's gonna have an impact. So then it was during that experience that I think I truly I truly began to know Christ and know His grace and know His love and know the value, and actually start seeing that value in my life. Mm-hmm. And then, like through that experience, I think that's the time I was saved. I came back, senior year was healthy. Then got to school in the fall, and then threw my first pen, felt great. And then my second pen, I tore my UCL, so I was out for another year. Mm-hmm. So then at this point, I was like, okay, I thought I had it figured out after the first time. Like you showed me your value. You showed me that baseball's not something that's worth living for, not something that is going to fulfill me in the long term, and not something that's always going to sustain me. So then I was like, I remember I went into the athletic trainer's room. She showed me the MRI report. And I was holding in tears in there because I didn't want to like let anything out. But then I walked out and I walked around the corner of Bennett and just sat down and like bawled my eyes out for probably like 15-20 minutes, called my dad, called my mom. I was like, I thought I understood why the first time, because my values were in the wrong spot, and this is a lesson to teach me that Christ is first and foremost the most important thing. And then so sitting there, I was like, what am I going to learn from this? Like I don't understand it. And I think that taught me that I don't need to understand, I just need to trust. Yeah. And I think because that's what Evan said on Sunday, which actually I think that was a really good way to articulate it. But like those two things combined showed me how like unimportant athletics really are in the long term, and that ultimately it's a tool to bring glory to the name of Christ. Because through this, like, we have an opportunity, like even in the baseball team, like if we weren't athletic, we didn't have the gift of baseball, like we wouldn't be able to share the gospel with those people, with the baseball team, with the other athletics teams. So using it in glory for that way, but then also all the people who come to the games, like the teams we play against, like what do we stand for? Like what makes this team different? And because Coach Chuck, with the women's soccer team, always runs with the theme uncommon. And this year we're doing that with all of athletics. So like, what does it mean to be different? What does it mean to be set apart from the rest of the world? And when teams come and play us, they realize what's setting this team apart, like what makes them uncommon. And like you were talking about before, like they have that sense of joy, they have that peace that just doesn't leave them. And they live their lives differently, they compete differently. Like what's the source of that? And then they realize Gordon's Christian school, or they come from, they have conversations with us, whatever it is, but somehow that points them to Christ. And then through that, it's Christ who gets the glory and not us. So I think for me, that was my experience, realizing baseball is very minuscule in terms of importance, but there's so much else to live for, and using it as a tool to bring glory to Christ instead of myself or the school or whatever.
Yeah, I think bouncing off that, Coach Chuck, the phrase he uses sometimes, he tells like his players that they're going to church, like treat it as if you're going to church, because it's not only like the intake of, yes, you're going to play the sport and you're going to give glory, but at the same time, it's like you should be acting the way you act in church, to be able to show like that the reason you're there isn't because of the sport. The reason you're there is ultimately because of God. And I love the way I stole this from Kirk Cousins, the NFL quarterback, but the analogy he uses, he says that, like in his eyes, God is an author and he has the pen, but his life is the ink. And so ultimately God writes it and the ink is what shows up. But, when you think about somebody writing a book, you don't think about, man, where did this ink come from? You think about who the author is. Right. And so the reason for our lives is to be able to steward it in the way that God wants us to.
Right.
And then because of the way that we are obedient and submitted to God, it shows his glory through us. I mean, obviously Christ talks about it in being the light of the world. Like, that whole thing is basically about us giving the glory to God through our actions.
Right. Yeah, I think about, just in what you were talking about earlier, Urso, and, as you point to that and essentially going back and God essentially getting the glory or so, what essentially fuels each of you? Because athletes are competitive or so. So when you're on there, you're on the pitcher's mound and everything like that, what is fueling you as you're there? Because I think sometimes even as, sometimes when people look at Christians or so, there's like the idea that, they can't be competitive or they can't do all of this. What is it that's fueling you? And then how do you even take on that whole thing of competition?
Yeah. Well, I think first, the idea that Christians can't be competitive. I mean, like, read Romans 12, read Hebrews 1. Like, it talks about like run the race of endurance. Like, and the like that in and of itself is worship. Like putting yourself through something hard for the glory of Christ, there's value in that. So that's what I would say to that. What was the first part of that question again?
We're saying like sometimes the way that people look at athletes or so is that sometimes they can't be competitive. But the other question is like, what fuels you when you're out there? Yeah.
For me, I would say gratitude, because kind of what I just shared, like the idea that every day I get to go out and play baseball or do whatever I'm doing is a gift makes me, or at least gives me the mindset to not waste it. You know what I mean? Like, don't take it for granted and just get everything out of that I can, because I'm put there. Like if I wasn't there for a purpose, I wouldn't still be there. God would have taken it out of my life in some way. So I think that just the fact that I am there shows me that I still have some purpose in being there. And the opportunity to do there is like, it's been taken away from me before. Like, so I have a better understanding, obviously not a perfect understanding of how valuable it is. But I think just the idea of gratitude and not taking it for granted sums it up.
I feel like kind of going off that too, like that brings confidence too.
Yeah.
And I think like understanding that, like you said, it could have been taken away, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
Shows that you're there for a reason. And I think like also like we talk a lot about like discipline, and like I think people confuse like competitiveness and passion. I think where it's like you can be very passionate, and it's like, I mean, we're getting up at 5-6 a.m. every day to go get after it, because like it's not only is it a blessing in our life, it's something we love to do. And I think going out there, like it's fine to understand that like, hey, I've worked really hard at this. This is something that I'm very passionate about, while also having that loose mindset of like, it's just a game.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing that I'm even here.
Yeah.
Surrounded by a great group of guys, great coach, like, and I just go get to play the game I love. And I think that's something when you talk about confidence, like being able to, one, know the work that you put in, and two, what Christ says about you, I think is all the confidence you really need. And I think so often we look for results as athletes to be like, I batted 500 last year. That's why I'm untouchable. When I think in all reality, it's like if you wake up every single morning, and it says in scriptures like new blessings every morning, and you got to really feed your spirit every single morning, or else you'll get like you'll starve, right? You'll get spiritually hungry. And I think if you're refreshing yourself every single morning of what Christ says about you and understanding things like Nehemiah 8:10, like the joy of the Lord is my strength, and like renewing yourself, like I think it's Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Like understanding that Christ puts you in situations that you can handle. I think that's where real confidence comes from, because it's like, I don't care what chirps you got. I don't care what situation I'm in. One, I'm grateful to be here. And two, I've worked hard and Christ put me here for a reason. And I feel like that's where true confidence comes from. And so often people think they need to be angry, or they need to want it more, or this or that. And I think in all reality, it's just staying loose, realizing it's just a game, and just reminding yourself daily what Christ says about us.
So that's some,
Yeah, no, I think it's like Caleb said, the understanding of like it is a gift that we're able to play the game. And then with Colby's part, like the results aren't what drives you. It's for me, it's like the fact that we as Christians, we run the race, we put in the hard work, but like it's okay if you don't see the results. Like, because I mean, it doesn't matter what the results are. I mean, Paul's life is literally, him going places and getting flogged and beat up, and yet he still had the ability to say that he was content in all circumstances. Like, this is a guy who was literally sitting in prison and got stoned, and yet he's sitting there and he's like, yeah, it's all right because I'm not doing this for myself.
So for me growing up, I always had like other people I looked at or so. Like I didn't get, like similar to you, I didn't give my life to Christ till I was in college. It was in my senior year of college or so. But there were always athletes that I grew up around sports, loving sports, playing sports. And I would always look at athletes. So these are way before your time, but I used to look at people like Reggie White, who played football. I looked at people like Reggie. I looked at other people, and he was a crazy person on defense or so, but at the same time, he loved Jesus. I looked at people like Ray Lewis, who used to play for the Ravens or so, but Ray Lewis was a terror on defense or so, but at the end of the day, when you heard him speak, he was always speaking about Christ. He was speaking about his relationship with God and everything like that. So those are people that inspired me. Who have been some of the athletes that you've looked at or so that have inspired you, that you admire their faith, their walk, their journey with Christ or so?
Go ahead.
I'm a big Tim Tebow fan.
Okay.
I'm a big Tim Tebow fan. And I think what really pulled me into Tim Tebow was that, like, he was the first Christian athlete that I saw with legit passion. I mean, you'd see him in the huddles, like,
Talk
red as a
talk about
tomato.
Christians can't compete.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, I loved it. Like, going out there, seeing real fire, and then just like the John 3:16 under his eye, like that fired me up. But I feel like also he was someone who could, like you said, I mean, he was a terror on the field, but you step off and he's instantly in a hard posture of service. I mean, you look at like his Night to Shine prom that he does, and like all the different stuff that he does for the community to really reflect Christ's love. But then it's like he gets on the field and he's like, you say Christians can't compete. Watch this, you know what I mean? So I feel like for me, it was always him and Christian McCaffrey were my two big ones, because they were both very vocal about it. They're both a lot better than everyone else around them. So I feel like those were the two for me growing up. But
yeah, I think for me, even though I play baseball, I don't watch a lot of professional sports. So my answer to that question would be my dad, just because, like, talk about coming home, like, I think a good comparison between our home here, like our actual house here on earth, and then our heavenly home is that, like, knowing that your value and your worth is not here, it's in heaven, kind of shapes you. So then what heaven or your relationship is, like, that foundation shapes who you are here. And then you grow to look like your home, you know what I mean? So I think having, like, the example at here home, earth home, is having my dad gave me an example to look to and grow up to, somebody that was always in my life. A good example to look to, a good competitor, obviously raised me until I was, I mean, still raising me now, really. But now I'm at college. But yeah, my dad, definitely that'd be my answer for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but Kirk Cousins, like I think that guy, obviously not the fire that Tim Tebow had, but like you hear interviews with him, and he's like every single time he's sitting there and he like will hammer home his faith. But even like now, like I mean, obviously he's not the starter, like doesn't play anymore. He does, but but
Not as well.
I think like in the baseball sense, like Luke Weaver, who's a reliever for the White Sox, or sorry, for the Yankees. And then the Pats just drafted a guy out of Ohio State, Trevion Henderson, and like those two guys I think are so outspoken about their faith, but at the same time, like you see them compete at high levels, and then when they fail, like I mean Trevion Henderson, there's a story about him, like he got angry and punched a dude on the field, and then realized how wrong he was in that, and like went to the sideline and went in prayer immediately. And it's seeing that where it's like those guys, although they may get caught up in something, at the same time when they like have the second of even like, I mean it's not restful on the sideline, but even just a moment to themselves where they're not sitting there thinking like, oh, like I hate that he did that. It's like, no, I need to ask for forgiveness from my Heavenly Father.
Yeah. When you guys are struggling, or so, struggling in your faith, just struggling through life, or so, how do you lean on each other during the season, during the school year, as an athlete, as a student, just life in general, or so? You guys communicating beyond the season and everything like that, support one another? Like, what do you guys do when you guys are struggling?
I feel like for me, my biggest thing that I learned coming to school, and it started with a Bible study called Mogs, was just understanding that vulnerability is strength. And I feel like so often people think that they're just this unbreakable dam, but it's like eventually someone's going to crack your dam and you're going down. You know what I mean? The water's going to burst through. And I think understanding that vulnerability paired with accountability is how you really grow and like remain level-headed, I think has really been big for me, because I think having people in your life that you can go to and be like, dude, I'm not doing all right. Like, I'm struggling with this, or this is really hurting me right now. Like, what do you see? How am I acting differently? And I think that's what has really helped me stay rooted, because, I mean, we have conversations all the time where it's like, dude, why am I being like this? And then it's, well, when was the last time you read your Bible? Have you been reading your Bible every day? And it's like, no. And it's like, you know what I mean? And then it's like, you got to keep each other accountable. And I think also people are so quick to be like, I don't want to hurt their feelings. But I think true love is accountability. And like, yes, scripture says, like, take the log out of your own eye before you point out the speck in someone else's. But I think it is true love to be like, hey, dude, you got to figure it out. Right. And I think like that is truly helping someone else. They don't go down that wrong path. But I think really just understanding that, like, especially as men in a society nowadays where it's like you got to be the big, tough, whatever. It's like, yeah, but like you're lying if you say you don't have feelings, and you're lying if you say you don't get hurt. And so I think having people in your life that you can be vulnerable with and have mentor you and keep you accountable, I think is really important, because you can only be Mr. Tough Guy for so long. And I think eventually, like, whether it be mental health, whatever it is, it'll catch up on you. So I think the biggest thing for me is like having that outlet, while also having someone that I can not only compare myself to who's going through a similar thing, but also keep me accountable.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. First thing that came to mind for me was the Bible study Mogs. It started, first time I went was the spring of my freshman year, so a year and a half, 2 years ago now. But I think it was the first time that I was in like a very open, vulnerable environment with a bunch of other guys my age, and just having that group to continually go back to and know that they were there for me and that I was there for them, and that was centered around Christ, was something that was very helpful. I think just environments like that for sure.
Yeah no, I think the same thing. Like, I think Mogs was definitely like a game changer for me, and understanding like that it's okay to struggle, but also understanding that like if we're going to work through that struggle, it's not going to be like advice that's given. It's going to be the word of God, or it's going to be leaning on Christ, whether that's through prayer or whether that's through his word. And I think also too, like Colby said, I think there's like a big, especially in society, there's like the focus on like masculinity and femininity. And I think that and it's even like in Christian culture, there's the ideas of like, strong masculinity. If you're going to be a man, you got to be like a strong biblical man. But I think the way that we understand how to get to that is so corrupted in the sense that like, I think that if you look at Christ, obviously he's the perfect example of what a man is. But I think for me at least, I look at like the Beatitudes as the place where he basically gives the instructions of what to be, pure in heart, a peacemaker, meek, but also like hunger and thirsting for righteousness, but understanding how we do that. And we don't do that like physically, we don't do that with our boys, we do that through prayer, because God is ultimately the one who, I mean, you look at the Psalms, every single one of those is prayers on asking God for either deliverance or just gratitude.
Yeah.
I feel like also to go off of that, like a lot of people who aren't Christian feel like Christians are just these people that think they got it all figured out, like don't need any help. But I think honestly, we realize how broken we really are. And I think I know like someone's lying to you if they say that they don't struggle or they don't go through stuff. And I think that's just the truth, and that's just the reality of being in a sinful world. And I think it's really important to remember that even the most like prominent, strong people in the Bible, like David, Solomon, people with great influence, they struggled like badly and they messed up badly. And so I think it's important to understand that like, one, you don't need to have it all figured out, and it's fine to not be fine. But I think there's a second half to that where it's like, okay, once you realize that, what are you relying on to then make you fine? And I think that's where you need to really stay rooted in your faith. And I think my biggest encouragement, to anyone listening, would just be like, don't think that you need to be perfect all the time, because Christ is the only one who is perfect and can't be perfect. But I think making him your foundation is what is going to help you when you're in those spaces of like, all right, stuff isn't going my way. And I think just staying true and faithful that he will bring you through, I think is the biggest thing for me. And I think in today's society, like you were saying, everyone's saying that you need to be old fashioned, man of the house, like you need to be the rock of the family. And I think I would agree, but I think there are levels to it. And I think you can't be that rock if you're not setting your foundation on the true rock, which is Christ.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I know you said it, but like the meek part, shout out to Zach Atui for this analogy, but like what that word in the original language means or like translates to is like a tamed horse. And it's like, I think like, especially as men, like that tamed horse, like having that leadership ability, having that like foundation, like you were talking about, but then having the self-control to contain it. You know what I mean? I think that in my head, at least, is a pretty cool like description.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that also came to mind in terms of like being able to lean on each other, like the conversations that I've had with these guys and then other guys outside of it that are on the team or off the team, is really like where I've found like it's not just, like Colby said, it's not just you who goes through it. Like a lot of like even my like I think it was like third time at Moggs, something that I'd really struggled with was like mentioned, and I'm like, oh, I had no clue like that was a struggle at all, that like was okay to have. And it's okay to have because you can work through it, and then you look more like Christ after that, because you understand that struggle doesn't bind you. It's the, like, the idea of the chains that hold you, but Christ is the one who breaks those chains to be able to make you more like him.
Right. And for our listeners or so, can you tell them what Moggs is, just in case they don't know?
So Moggs it's like a Bible study we do on like Sunday nights, but it's basically, it started from like a group called like Circuit Riders. And they had like an event a few years back, but they planted like two different groups. So it's they have Moggs and Wogs, and like Moggs is the men's version, Wogs is the women's version, but Moggs is basically a men's group but a Bible study at the same time. So we take a question kind of each week based off of what we talked about the week before, and we just kind of work through it. And then if things come up outside of that, which almost always does, then we'll talk about it and we'll work through it. But I think the Proverbs 27:17, like iron sharpens iron, is the perfect way to describe it, because it's just a bunch of guys who are rooted in Christ coming together and understanding like that the vulnerability part is what needs to happen in order to sharpen each other.
Yeah, and make like men helping other men become the man of God that God is calling them to be.
Absolutely.
And hey, Tavilla 120.
7 p.m. Sundays.
7 o'clock, pull up. But yeah, I think that Bible study has been huge. And I think just a space to like spread the wisdom that you have or that someone else has onto someone else who is struggling with something you've been through. I mean, it really brings a deeper understanding to stuff that you've gone through, where it's like those moments in your life where like, what reason could God possibly put me through this? And to think that you can help someone before they get to where you were because like you had to go through that, I think is just such a blessing. And I think I've stopped myself from falling in a lot of ways from the wisdom that's been passed on to me. And I think I'm excited to hopefully do that going forward with some of the younger guys now. But
yeah, also MOG stands for Men of God. S, it's like plural.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Make that clarification. Z, I guess. Z. Okay.
All right. So listen, listening to you guys has been very inspiring. Or so, I think back to my time in college. I'm like, I wish I was this far ahead. I didn't become a Christian until my senior year in college or so. So by then, a whole lot of other stuff essentially gone down. But I think about like what you guys are doing or so. And then I think into also thinking about one of the things that you guys have started to do was start up your own podcast or so. So tell me what inspired that. Tell our audience about what your podcast is called and like the vision behind it or so. And what brings you guys together to do that.
Well, I feel like first off, it's called Faith Talks Podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, real crazy complicated title, but I feel like what really made me want to start it was for guys on the team, because it was kind of like I'd have those conversations with them and they'd be like, oh, well, church is just some old guy telling me what to do. And there wasn't a real connection for them. And they would see fruits from the conversations we would have with them. And they'd be like, wow, I can compare to you. I can relate to you. But then they'd be like, what does like 50-year-old, whatever his name is, know about my life? You know what I mean? He's just talking at me. And so I think trying to establish something where people could have that relational aspect and see that we go through things that are similar and kind of guide them in that, and have someone where it's like, hey, I know this person is dealing with what I'm dealing with, and kind of help inspire them and guide them and be like, hey, like I can be countercultural because they are. And like, how do I find a church? It's like, oh, well, I don't need to listen to this old guy. Like I have people my own age who I can relate to, kind of telling me how they do it. And I think that's something that I think has borne a lot of fruit. But I think that was also my big driver, is it was so often the hump was kind of church is something for old people and faith is something that I'll do later. It's like, I'm going to have fun while I'm young. I'll do it later. And I think really showing people that there can be true joy and passion from a young age, but also kind of giving them guidance, because we were blessed to be strong in our faith at a young age. And I think that's for a reason. And I think that was kind of my big push, was to be like, hey, like, you don't feel like you can relate to them, relate to me. And then eventually you'll realize that what they are saying is a blessing and that you can't listen to them.
Yeah, I think first it was his idea. So I'm not going to take credit for that. Kevin and Colby very much influenced me to be a part of this, but they presented the idea to me, and I liked it. So I decided I'd be a part of it. But I think that like my motive for joining was, like Colby just said, like impacting the people around, because within Gordon, obviously it's a Christian school, but I feel like especially within athletics, you have a lot of people who are just here because they got an opportunity to play a sport here, and they don't have, or they're not motivated by that Christian aspect, or their faith isn't a driving factor for them to be here. So we kind of thought, like, or at least I thought, like having this as like a resource for people to see, people their own age, living a very similar life to them, and seeing them living it differently, or seeing like the way they think about things. Hopefully that in some way that's like a service to the people around me who don't necessarily have that same background, and can impact their faith in a way that it wouldn't be at church or in a different environment.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to take credit. Colby's the front runner on that. He came up to me in chapel one day. He's like, "What do you think about this?" I was like, "Seems pretty cool." And so we started after that. But I think, yeah, just the same thing that these two guys said, where it's like, you know, there's people our age who, or even if they don't go to church, like they don't want to go to church, even just seeing something, like if they're like, "Oh, I know those guys," or even like those are guys my age, like they're gonna stop for at least, you know, a minute or two and just look at it. Or even if they're passing by, like, you know, one little phrase, something could hit them. But at the same time, I think like Paul says, Timothy's like, you know, don't let your youth be the driving factor of you not pouring into others. Because I think that obviously, like, through the Holy Spirit, I think we are given the gifts of being able to be able to pour into others, and to be able to pour the wisdom that we have been given from God through His Word into others, and then they are able to, you know, potentially come to Christ and do that to other people as well.
Well, and I think kind of to go off of that, like another thing that we talk about all the time is, I think, and I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with this too, is like you kind of see the, oh, it's only like 50 views so far. You know what I mean? But I think understanding that like Christ will meet you where you are at. And I think unfortunately nowadays everyone's on their phone. So I think kind of bringing the gospel to them and using social media as an outlet, I think is something that I think is a blessing. And I think we talk about all the time, where it's like, it doesn't matter if you get 1 million views if you can truly impact one person's life. And I think that's the one thing that really keeps me going as far as continue to put out content, is just like, if this can truly be the one way that someone gets the gospel daily because they know us and they're like, hey, I want to listen to what they have to say, like that's good enough for me. It's like, we don't need whatever recognition or whatever, but just to know that the gospel is being put out there, and that one person a day might hear it, I think that's just a blessing in itself.
It's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's that whole like idea of like leaving the 99 to save the one. Like,
Yeah.
I think both of you guys would agree, because we've talked about it since the very start of doing this. But like, I think we're fine giving up like a couple hours, you know, every few weeks, even to just reach one person, regardless of who that is.
Yeah.
Listen, just want to tell y'all I appreciate y'all. Or so I believe that Gordon College is a better college because the three of you are here. Or so on. It's been a blessing to have y'all on today. So thanks for coming home. Appreciate you.
Thank you. This has
All
been
right.
good.
Thank you.
All right. Today I sat down with Jason Linders, athletic director for Gordon College. He shared about his faith, his family, his roots, growing up in California, and his journey to Gordon College. All right, Jason, listen, man, I'm glad that you're here with us. Everybody, I want you to meet Jason Linders. He's the athletic director for Gordon College. Glad to be with you, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The one thing that I wanted to say to you, or to ask you on this is this, or so, this the Coming Home podcast, or so. What does it mean to come home?
This is my third faith-based institution, so coming home back to a faith-based school was important. Like I'd say, when they reached out, I really wasn't too familiar with Gordon College, but it did intrigue me being a faith-based school and having the opportunity to serve, in a faith-based community. A faith-based student-athlete experience was important. So, I think that's kind of coming home for me after serving at 9 other institutions, and mainly public, and a few private schools sprinkled in there, but my third faith-based school, that was important.
So, so one of the things that we wanted to do is we essentially just wanted to get to know a little bit more about you. So tell us where you're from.
Originally from Southern California.
Okay. And what was it like in Southern California growing up there?
Well, my parents are from Hawaii, and so grew up, loving the water, loving the beach. I skateboard, surfed, and believe it or not, I played ice hockey growing up. My mom didn't let me play
They
football.
got ice hockey in California?
Yep,
Wow.
yep. The LA Kings, the Anaheim Ducks. When I was growing up, Wayne Gretzky had gone to the Kings, so it's pretty popular. And actually, my first experience in the New England area, we played in a tournament out here
Okay.
at BU. Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't do well, but we played out here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up, like I said, around the beach. Didn't play football till high school, kind of my mom's orders, and played 3 or 4 different sports growing up.
Okay. What position did you play?
I played baseball, outfield. I played basketball, football, and then track. I did
Okay.
football and track in college.
Okay. No, I was saying, what position did you play football-wise?
Linebacker,
Okay. Okay. Do you miss it?
of course.
Okay.
It's the greatest sport ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us more about your love for sports. How did you get into it? Was it something that your parents encouraged you?
Yeah, my dad was a college football player. A lot of my cousins, aunts, and everybody was. A lot of people played sports in our family. Probably wasn't until I got to college and really, started focusing on. I mean, obviously, high school you want to try to play the next level, but I think it wasn't until college till I really started getting disciplined with, diet and exercise and sleep and recovery, stuff like that, and then. I accepted Jesus Christ at a younger age, but then really got back into like FCA and stuff like that in college, and so really kind of from at a younger age was using sport as a platform to glorify Christ. So
Okay. So how did you find in sports? Did you find like a lot of other athletes were Christians? Was it an easy community? Essentially, just to fit into.
No, not necessarily. I went to Cal Poly, California State Polytechnic University, Humboldt. It wasn't. No, there was definitely. I mean, you can tell who the believers were, and like I said, we had an FCA chapter there, and then as I transitioned to college coaching, I was always involved in that.
Yeah. For our audience that doesn't know, what's FCA?
FCA is Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Okay.
So there's. We actually have an area rep here, Olivia Ricconi, who we work with. The state director for Massachusetts is a Gordon alum, Janine Cavallero. So yeah, so we're really tied in. Our sports ministry program that we've relaunched this year is really tied into FCA.
What were some of the challenges for you in just playing college sports?
I think just like every young person, time management and making sure that as a student athlete, keeping school first. I think at that age, really trying to stay disciplined with your faith as well. And, there's a lot of external factors that pull you in different directions. But I think, like I said, at the college level, really started to learn how to be more disciplined and with time and, time management with your faith, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. And then, what were some of the things that you drew out of it that you're most proud about being a student athlete?
I was the first college graduate on my mom's side of the family. So, we kind of that Polynesian side, had not really been exposed to maybe opportunities to attend college. So, I know that my grandfather was really proud before he passed, and. After that, my sister went to school. My nieces have gone and graduated. I have my oldest daughter and the middle daughter they're both attending Arizona State University. So I think it's kind of turned into an expectation, especially on my mom's side of the family. So that's probably the thing that I took the most.
Okay. So one of the things that you mentioned is you mentioned your Polynesian background. You tell us more about that.
Both my parents were born in Hawaii. My mom's side has Hawaiian and Samoan, and still have a lot of relatives out in California, Oregon, Utah, Arizona. They're more prevalent on the West Coast, probably, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So how did it feel coming from a warm weather climate, and then coming over here to this frigid weather?
Well, this is my 10th school, so this is my
Okay.
10th institution, and
Okay.
I've lived everywhere from California, Nevada, Utah to Florida, Montana. So I've been in the cold as well, Mississippi.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my 10th institution. My wife is from the New England area, so she wanted to get back here eventually, and she
Okay.
had followed me around enough. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the experience been like for you here at Gordon?
it's been amazing. Gordon is the third faith-based institution I've served at. So I served briefly at Millsaps College in Jackson, Mississippi, and then Grand Canyon University. I was there for almost 6 years in Phoenix. So this is my third faith-based institution. It was important for me coming from my last stop, which was Chicago State University, to get back to a faith-based institution with like-minded people and the ability to, iron sharpens iron, right? So, but the ability to be open about your faith and use sports as a platform.
Okay. For those that may not know, like all that entails with being an athletic director, can you talk about what that looks like? What does an athletic director do on a campus?
I don't think we have enough time there, Nathaniel. No, I'd say an athletic director of athletics nowadays is more involved on the external side. But I mean, I think we all got into the business to impact young people. But I like to say that I coach the coaches. The coaches hear me say this all the time. But as we're trying to build a culture of continuous improvement and culture of collaboration, I view the coaches as CEOs of their programs. So I mean, that's not just X and O's and competitive excellence, but that's academic achievement, personal development, spiritual development, spiritual formation, as we like to say, faith, learning, and living. So they're kind of in charge of all that stuff: compliance, fundraising, alumni engagement. So I try to coach the coaches. And a lot of people, this is cliche to a lot of people, but really try to serve them, be a servant leader, give them the resources to be successful. And then I like to always say, especially in my deputy roles, where as a number two, I like to refer to myself as a jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, you try to surround yourself with better, more talented people, smarter people than you, and then try to serve others. So that's what I try to do daily.
Ultimately, in sports, probably the biggest thing that stands out is that everybody wants to win. Or so. When we think about that, or so, what other things outside of just winning are important to you as an athletic director?
I always talk about three priorities, and when I'm speaking to alumni, parents, fans, student athletes, and I address this at our welcome back, but we have three priorities: develop and disciple young people, disciple them in Christ, make sure they're graduating on time. Now, I don't say we need to graduate our student athletes. Our student athletes need to earn their degree, but we need to support them and make sure they matriculate towards graduation on time. And then the third priority is building competitive excellence. So we don't say winning a lot anymore. We talk about building competitive excellence. And when you're in a culture of continuous improvement, I mean, in our conference, the top 6 teams go to they access the postseason. If you win the conference tournament, you access the NCAA championships, which is ultimately what we all want to do as competitors. But we talk about continuous improvement. So if we finish outside the top 6, how do we get inside that top 6? So we finish, out of the top 3, how do we get in the top 3? I mean, last year our women's soccer team finished second in the conference. They lost in the championship to Hartford. They still access the NCAAs as an at-large bid. So, that's what we want with all of our teams. I think 10 of our 24 teams accessed the postseason last year. So we want to build on that. And but again, the first and foremost, the priorities are develop and disciple young people to Christ.
Okay. What do you look for? What do you look for as a successful season each year?
I think we look at a comprehensive development and overall achievement of our programs. So obviously, we're making sure our student athletes are successful in the classroom. We look at team GPAs. I mean, out of our 24 sports, I think in the fall, all but one team had a 3.0 or higher. I think this spring, we had a couple coaching transitions, so we had a couple teams not finish above a 3.0. They were like 2.95, close. But we want every team, 3.0 or higher team GPA. If that's happening, you have less eligibility risks, right? Academic eligibility issues. So I'd say academics. We want our coaches. They have to be, again, as part of the CEOs of their programs. Part of that is making sure that they're providing the platform and being leaders for spiritual formation. Making sure that our student, all of our student athletes are, obviously they're attending chapel. They have residence halls, Bible studies. They have team Bible studies. But we try to, as part of a comprehensive, support system, try to make sure that we're providing those platforms as well. And then obviously winning on the field, but again, competitive excellence.
Definitely. One of the things as I think about as an athletic director or so, you're not only involved with the coaches, you're also involved with the players. One of the things you probably do is you probably go to a lot of games during the year. What are some of you, like you've been here at Gordon for over a year now or so, what are some of the biggest memories you've taken from or highlights of some of those games that you've been to? What have been some of the more enjoyable moments that you've had?
I mean, I try to attend as many home events or local events as I can. As a matter of fact, I saw one of our track student athletes in Frost yesterday. She was working the front desk, and she said, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate my last AD, or she said her AD, a previous stop, she didn't see him a lot, and she said, I saw you at all the track meets, the home track meets. So I appreciate that. Try to support our student athletes as much as possible. Obviously based on schedules or travel, it's not possible all the time. We just won the one fresh on top of my head is we just won the outdoor women's track and field championship at home. We happened to be the host and we won it. So that was awesome. I think we just barely beat Endicott, Hartford, Roger Williams. So, we try to, anytime we can finish on top is fantastic. And then how we compete is important to me as well. Are we, I always tell people it's okay to knock your opponent down and then help them back up. And, it's about how we conduct ourselves, our behavior, our language, everything.
Okay. In your own journey as a athlete or so, everything comes there. There's classes, there's stress, there's injuries, there's all that different stuff that comes with being an athlete or so. What would you say to encourage students who are thinking about or are currently in college athletics or so to encourage them?
Yeah, to me it all goes back to time management. Looking back, a lot of things that I mentored young people on when I was coaching, and then now as a the thing about being a director of athletics is you asked me, and I'm sorry to go back to this, but yeah, you're a lot more removed now from being a coach. When you're a coach, you see the student athletes every day on your team. So I do miss that from being a coach, but that's why I try to, I can't get out to all the practices obviously, but with my schedule, but I try to attend as many home events so I can at least be around the student athletes. But to get back to your question, time management, using your resources. I think a lot of our student athletes already do this, but they count on each other as teammates. So, and obviously you're developing friendships on and off the field. I think mental health is obviously a bigger factor nowadays. I think that's just our culture, that's just life nowadays than it was back when maybe we played. So that's all different. But I honestly don't remember seeing like any mental health specialist when I was playing or high school, college. But it's definitely something that's integrated in our comprehensive development here.
When you see students, especially like a new student coming onto campus, how do you see them getting adjusted coming in as a first-year athlete or so, as compared to those who have been here for a while or so?
Yeah, I've only been here for one full year, but we're obviously just like with our partners in admissions and enrollment, we're always trying to maintain a high student retention rate. We have, I'm thinking of like men's soccer. We have some really talented freshmen that are coming back this year. And, we made the postseason last year. We lost in penalty kicks or We lost in penalty kicks to Western New England. So in the postseason, but we're coming back with a lot of returners in men's soccer. So I expect, and we have high expectations in soccer every year. So
Okay. One of the things I think about is that you being an athletic director and have been in roles where you've coached or so, is there ever a time where sports, where you turn off sports or so? Are you tuned in like to professional sports outside of college or so? Like is life just surrounded by it all the time?
No,
Or
I
what do you
actually
enjoy?
I don't watch much at home, to be honest. I try to get home, have dinner with my wife every night, and then I might get back on the computer later. But I mean, I'm from California, so I'm a 49ers fan, I'm a Lakers fan, I'm a Dodgers fan. So actually, the middle daughter that's coming out, she's an intern with Arizona Diamondbacks, and then so she wanted to go to a Red Sox game. So we're going to the Red Sox Dodgers game later this month.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the series. But no, I mean, to be honest, we don't, as a family, we don't go to a lot of pro venues.
Okay.
I enjoy college much more. The fact that Gordon doesn't have football allows me to watch a little bit more college football in the fall. So that's probably a blessing.
Okay. And then what do you do for fun? What's fun for you outside of that? So
If I could golf every day, I would.
okay.
Yeah. I met with President Hammond early this week, and I told him we need to get an athletics golf tournament going next summer. So he's like, sign me up. I said, I'm going to hold you to that.
Okay.
But no, I try to get out with the coaches. I went last week. We played at our home course at 6:30 in the morning. Just got a quick 9 in before work. So try to get out as much as I can. Play golf right now before it gets cold, and while I have a little bit more time. But yeah, golf. I run. Believe it or not, run a little bit. I know it doesn't look like it, but I run a little bit. Try to run twice a week, 3 times a week, and then go to the gym once in a while.
Okay. And then just fun questions or so, like what are you listening to nowadays, music-wise?
Well, I listen to everything, but I listen to a lot of worship. Brandon Lake, CCB music. I have a whole playlist. But yeah, I'd say, right now, Mercy Me, Toby Mac.
Okay.
Connor Price, all those guys. So yeah.
Okay. And what
I
do you
listen to everything though, reggae, country.
Right.
Yeah. So try to read when I can, get in the Word when I can, and one thing you told me, how do I relax? I actually teach middle school. I teach middle school Bible study at our church, so
Okay.
I do that as well.
Tell me more about your faith journey.
My faith journey, it's connected in everything that we do. Right? Our decision making, our hopefully our thoughts, our behaviors. But no, I accepted Christ at a young age. It's probably 11 or 12, and I've been to different denominations, but and right now I attend a non-denominational church. But no, it's try to make Christ-centered decisions daily. So,
Where are some times where you've had to either lean in as a coach or an athletic director to essentially feed the faith or encourage a young person?
yeah, we do that almost daily here. There's a FCA Bible study every Tuesday that a few of the coaches and myself attend. So we're around a lot of men of faith, and I think our coaches do a good job using sports as a platform to disciple our young people. We do that almost daily. I see our coaches do that all the time. If I'm around and we're not modeling the behavior, yeah, I'll step in. But for the most part, expect our coaches. We have expectations for our coaches, our head coaches, to model the way for our young people.
Okay. My last question for you. All right, or I'll put it in this way or so. I know you watch multiple different sports or so, but who's your favorite football player of all time, favorite baseball player of all time, and favorite basketball player?
Wow, that's a lot. Bo Jackson growing up was probably the best athlete I watched, but football, I'd say Walter Payton was my favorite. He passed, obviously, but probably the greatest running back in my mind. I mean, current players, I love watching like Fred Warner, linebacker, play right now. Baseball, man, take your pick. I mean, I love watching Shohei Ohtani right now, Mookie Betts, a lot of the Dodgers.
Yeah, y'all beat my Yankees last year.
Yeah, a lot of the Dodgers. So, but I mean, growing up, I watched, Sammy Sosa and McGuire and Barry Bonds all going at it and stuff like that. So, but Bo Jackson was a great baseball player as well. Basketball, I'm a big, obviously from the Lakers, big Magic Johnson fan. Obviously, Michael Jordan was very good, Larry Bird back then. But I grew up with like Shaq and Kobe, winning stuff. So there was, I'd probably say Shaq is probably my favorite player.
Okay.
LeBron right now is LeBron. Been doing it for a long time. So.
Well, man, listen, we appreciate your time,
Yeah.
man. Thanks for
No, I
coming out
appreciate
and
it.
doing this.
Yeah.